I've got a Christmas tree stand hack for you today. It's a little early for Christmas, but I know some people start prepping as early as September or even earlier. So if you have a metal Christmas tree stand like this, you probably have an eye bolt as one of your major attachments. This one has 4, and I've taken this one out. Now, if yours comes with just the eye bolt and has nothing on the end, this is for you. So take this out of the stand, clean it up. I used some Awesome. It's a really good degreaser and works really well on pine sap, which this is a cedar or a blue sapphire or something along those lines, which worked really well to get the sap off of the threads. And then take this to the hardware store. If you go to Lowe's or Home Depot with this, they have a contraption in the hardware section that has either a male thread sticking out or a female socket that you can thread this into to find the right size. This is a convoluted example of that. And you can see here that it has the threads, then it has the socket. These are M10 1.5s. And if I lay the threads against each other, they kind of fit fairly well. And then you can test fit them in the store. But the ones at Home Depot and Lowe's are usually on a board, mounted to the wall, and you've got the thread sticking out, or you've got what looks like a sleeve that you can thread this into. Anyway, do a little bit of legwork on your part. Once you figure out what size this is, and I had the wrong size, mine is an M10 1.5, and I thought it was a 3/8, but for example, this works just fine. You can see that with my other 3, I already have these nuts on them, but you're going to buy what's called a flange nut. And a flange nut has a little rim around it. And this little rim, we're going to put this on backwards so that you're creating surface area against the tree trunk itself. Now, the reason for doing this is if we were to take and screw this in, it is just that. It is a screw. And with a green Christmas tree, the flesh is going to be softer. There's going to be a lot more sap in it, and this is going to want to dig in. So what we're needing to do, or what I'm suggesting that you do, is that you increase the surface area by getting one of these flange nuts. And then you thread this onto the end. Like I said, mine's the wrong size, but you can see with the others that are here, that is what we've done. So we've increased the surface area. We've almost doubled the size of it. So the eye bolt itself has got threads and is going to want to drill or bore into the tree trunk. With the flange nut, we've increased the surface area, but we still have a very rigid metal ring that will also try to burrow itself into the tree as we turn the eye bolts and tighten up the grip against the tree. Part of the problem with this situation is that as either the eye bolt or the nut is pushing into the tree, it's not just simply pushing into the tree, but it's turning, so it's cutting. So what we need to do is create a bit of a pivot. And this is what I found. You'll want to use your hardware and the nut that fits, and then go down to the plumbing section and look in PVC. This is what's called a plug, and it's intended to go in the end of a PVC pipe and plug it up. This one is 1 inch, I believe. The interior dimension is what you're going to be most interested in, and you want to make sure that it fits over your nut, over your flange nut on the end of your eye bolt. And then as you turn the eye bolt, this is what's going to rest against the tree, and if you'll notice, it's not spinning. So this creates a very stable surface against the tree, and you do this on all 4 sides. And this creates a very stable platform against the tree, just pushing in on it as you tighten up the eye bolt to squeeze the tree trunk in the stand. So each of these will spin on the end of the eye bolt and allow you to adjust. I'll do this without getting in front of the camera. Allow you to adjust and get your tree trunk centered. And then you can crank on these, and all these are going to do, it's very loud. So we have essentially tripled the size, probably more than that. We've probably, 1, 2, 3, this is probably about 6 or 8 times the surface area of just the eye bolt itself. It's probably about 3 times the size, surface area of the flange nut, and I'm just guesstimating. The math on this really doesn't matter. This creates a pivot and allows you to tighten up the eye bolt without boring. This allows you to tighten up the eye bolt without drilling into or cutting into the tree trunk with either the eye bolt or the flange nut. So for about less than $1 a piece, plus let's say 30 cents for each one of the nuts, you'll get a little bit more use out of your metal Christmas tree stand. Now obviously these don't just, they stick, as they've fallen off several times during my demonstration. You don't want to glue it because you do want it to swivel. You want something to just kind of tackily hold on to it. Once you get the tree trunk in here, you should be able to tighten this down relatively easily because the trunk itself will hold these in place. So you want to... Okay, so what I have here is a jar that I have collected. I don't know what I have in here. It could be, I think it's coffee grounds. Simulating my tree trunk. I have loosened up the eye bolts far enough to allow me to put on my PVC plugs, and I can now put this inside. Actually, I can even let go of it, much like you would a real tree, and the caps aren't coming off, so I can tighten these up. You see it's not digging into the jar, it's putting equal pressure on each side, and that's not going anywhere. I can actually almost, no, I'm going to collapse in the jar, and then I'm going to have coffee grounds go everywhere. But that is fairly stable. Loosen this up before I do something I will regret. Now at the end of the holiday season, you will notice that this does have sap on it because the tree does have sap, and you have created a bit of an abrasion against it, even though it's not as bad as having the eye bolt or the nut cut into the tree itself. So you do want to clean these up because they are still sticky with sap, and because they are sticky, they may want to stick to the tree and then they won't spin as easily. So clean these up at the end of the season. You could clean up your eye bolts and your nuts as well, just to cut down on any of the unwanted adhesion from the tree sap. But this is my setup. I've increased the surface area with flange nuts, which gives me a much wider surface area than just the eye bolt itself. And then I've used PVC plugs. This is about a 1 inch. I can almost read it. To go over the top. So go down the hardware aisle, find the nut that fits your eye bolt, and then go down the plumbing aisle and find a PVC plug that fits over the nut that you have. You want a fairly snug fit. You don't want to put a 2-inch plug on here and have it just wobble all over the place. This is got just a little bit of wiggle room in there, but it'll allow you plenty of adjustment. and give you a much more secure tree because now you've increased the surface area for each one of these connection points. I hope this helps. Have a Merry Christmas, because we're talking about Christmas trees, and a Happy Holiday. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.
Too many hobbies, not enough time.
It's a theme song, y'all.